Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, man. Um, we finally got to that point. Uh, I have the 2012 R1 operational now. It is up for sale. If you're interested, hit me up. Um, and as I had said, the plan was to get this bike up and running. Well, actually, that bike. Get this bike up and running. And while that bike is up and running, and I still have wheels because if I rebuild a bike, obviously I have to test ride that bike. I have a good reputation. I do honest work. I'm upfront about everything. I don't lie to people. I'm accessible. I'm reachable. So if someone does buy a bike from me, man, and because these bikes are rebuilt, people are already skittish about, wanting to pay what I'm asking. But at the end of the day, man, you'll buy a used bike from someone that has a clean title, that's been wrecked, that's been rebuilt, and you won't know it until you actually take that bike apart yourself and you see evidence that it's been dropped before. I just dealt with this with a guy who bought a part from me, and we had the same conversation. He was like, "Nah, I wouldn't buy a salvage, a rebuilt bike or whatever the case is, because I don't know the history of it." But then he turned around and told me that the bike that he does own, the listing said that the bike had never been dropped. It was well maintained, taken care of, and all that stuff. But as he started taking fairings off so that he could put some carbon fiber parts on, I think it was, he saw the frame had scratches on it. The swing arm had, little scuffs, and, it was just little evidence that the bike had definitely been dropped before. But once again, since that stuff isn't reported, you can hide it. With this bike, for instance, this gray bike, for instance, the damage on it was cosmetic, man. It was very minor damage. I think the biggest thing that this bike had going on was the rear wheel was bent, and it was a slight bend in it. And I already had one. Other than that, the subframe and the tank. It was all like cosmetic stuff. The frame was good, the engine was good, the bike started straight up, everything. I haven't had a single issue with this bike. I love riding this bike. So that's why I say, if I don't get what I'm asking for, no skin off my teeth, man, because I love the way this bike rides, and I have absolutely no problem just adding it to the stable because I'm one of those guys that normally has more than one bike. So anyhow, back to this video, man. What I wanted to explain is that the last issue that I have been dealing with this bike was an overheating problem, and that in itself is a long story. I will probably discuss it while I'm riding this bike because there's no point in me just standing here telling you about it. So, I do have other projects lined up. If you haven't noticed, that's an R7 over there. Still debating if I want to rebuild it or just part it out. And then over here, we still have this 2019 R1. More than likely, that's next up. Those are my R1M forks, the Olin's forks. And of course, you all know about the Rumblebee over here. So while I'm going to be converting this bike to an R1M, there's other work that I'm going to be doing to it as well. I'm going to go ahead and replace my other grip. I put this one on here like when I first started riding this bike. Also, I am going to be replacing some of these decals that I have on the bike. Do those a little bit better, make them look better, change the font up on these, and probably, not even put them back in the same spot. Got a little nail in the tire. Gonna pull that out, hopefully not lose any air, but these tires are getting kind of close to, time to go away because I was having issues with this bike. I really have not just gotten out and rode it like I want to. So a lot of the riding I've been doing has been around the city, just straight lining, and these tires are starting to show because I'm starting to get flat spots. I also plan to change out some of these pieces and replace them with carbon fiber. I know these are going to be carboned. I have a carbon fiber frame cover. Got this guy right here, carbon fiber. I actually ordered another seat cowl in carbon fiber because this twill, this actual cowl was purchased from a different manufacturer. This, as well as the rest of the carbon fiber that I'm putting on, all came from R1M Carbon. So shout out to them, man. They hooked me up. So yeah, just little things like that that I'll be redoing while I have the bike apart. Replacing these ASV levers. I broke my negative battery cable. So because of that, I have not ridden this bike in about 3 weeks now at all, just because of that. And I just said I'll get to it once I do this reconversion. Not gonna stand here and keep talking your heads off. Just wanted to let you guys know that's what we have going on today. With that being said, guys, we are going to get into the teardown. The bike is not going to go completely torn down, just the stuff I need to get to. So yeah, that's it, guys. If you all have any other comments or suggestions that you're thinking of, let me know. Just drop them down below. Well, I guess it wasn't challenging enough for me, so of course, when the bike fell over, had to take some damage. Now, that steering damper bracket was broken when I bought the bike, which is the reason that I have the GPR damper now. But yeah, this is why it's good to have a second set of hands. But normally, I've had this thing down to a science to where it does not fall, but hey, it happened today. Now, the good news is I already had one of those parts on order for this bike. Actually, it was here. And even if I did not have that one, this one is still in perfect condition. So I could use this one, or I could use the new one that I already have on hand, which is right here. But since this one is already, you know, it's not mounted already, and I don't have to go through the trouble of taking stuff apart, I'm gonna just go ahead and throw this one on, and I'll wait until, I don't know, probably when I'm putting the wiring harness back on or something like that, and I'll break that thing down and rebuild it. But we have the shock on, we have the rear shocks on now, as well as the front. So I just cleaned this rear wheel off because it was looking a little, you know, homeless. So cleaned that guy off. Might clean this out. I don't know. I mean, how long is it gonna stay clean? And who really cares, to be honest? I really just want to get back to riding. So, but I guess you can say we're 50% of the way now, maybe something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna loosen those pinch bolts again so that I can align these more evenly. And yeah, it's time to start putting this bad girl back together, man. Hey!